All right, welcome everyone to this ICAP position description technical assistance. I'm Ryan Rogers. I'm the Iowa College AmeriCorps program coordinator, and today is really just going to be focused on kind of the biggest shift is with the ICAP position description template. So during this technical assistance, really the main benefits to this new template for position descriptions for the member, it's going to be just to be able for them to better communicate their service activities and to better communicate the service requirements and their performance measures. And to the overall program, it's going to help us to better document the member service activities and better track the program interventions that we're trying to track. And for those of you that may be familiar with the previous iterations of the position descriptions, really the biggest shift is just the template and how we're actually documenting it. A lot of the information that you're going to hear is information that you may have already heard, but now we're finally going to be documenting it so that we're able to actually share that with the member, with you all, with ICVS, and anyone else who would need to see what the member is doing. So we can just have this document that adequately and clearly defines what the member is going to be doing. So much of what you're going to be seeing isn't particularly new. These are kind of conversations we've had with you all kind of throughout a member's term. If we need any clarifying questions, we're just putting it into a document that is a lot clearer in nature. So going forward here, the document is actually live on our Weebly, Iowa College AmeriCorps Weebly.com. And then with that is a bunch of the different guidelines to actually fill out this new position description template. And Justin has done a really good job of creating a cheat sheet for it. That is, once you click on the file at the very bottom or the last two pages of it, it's pretty much a cheat sheet that walks you through the entire position description. Something else you may notice about it, and as you kind of look at it, it kind of looks and acts similar to, if you're familiar with an AmeriCorps Vista VAD. So that's kind of what the direction that we're going towards now, to make sure that we're clearly and accurately describing what a member is doing at their community sites. So there's some general guidelines. Something else that was added was just kind of a definition around what eligible service sites are. So those are your nonprofit organizations. This includes faith-based organizations that are not solely focused on lobbying, state and local governments, elementary, secondary schools, Indian tribes, institutions of higher education, of course, and labor organizations. Some service site limitations. So for full-time members, they can only serve at their host site, and they may partner with other local organizations now. And then for the part-time members, they may serve at up to 3 public organizations. They just all need to be eligible service sites. And then as far as the position description guidelines, again, kind of going over that cheat sheet that Justin has created, it's really a list of kind of shoulds and should nots. So that will really walk you through how to actually fill out everything and fill it out in a way that we're able to, again, clearly articulate to another organization about what exactly your AmeriCorps member is doing. So some guidance on appropriate service activities. So member activities must be above and beyond what the individual or regular volunteers would normally be doing. So this goes into the non-duplication. So it has to be above and beyond what a normal volunteer is doing or what their normal volunteer effort is doing or someone else that is doing something administratively there. CNCS considers capacity building activities to be indirect services, so the majority of your members' hours that they are actually claiming need to be indirect hours and direct services that provide a sustained level or more or better direct services after the National Service Participant term of service is ended. So that's how capacity building is defined by CNCS. Activity must be connected to the ICAP design, goal, and performance measures to make sure there's a clear connection as you're filling out these position descriptions. And one of the big things here, as we're kind of already piloting this new template, but making sure that administrative activities are not allowed. And we have some verbiage in the actual walkthrough and instructions for the template to kind of help you steer away from some keywords or phrases that may appear more administrative. So members must not serve in a primarily administrative role. However, members should be expected to maintain his or her own files, but not those of other staff. So again, just making sure that the position is not overly administrative in nature. Just like this previous year, direct service is generally unallowable. Direct service might be allowable if the activities are training the member on their capacity building activities, if it's required for any type of emergency or state emergency, local emergency, and the organization or any organization-wide events like days of service. So those are the only times when direct service is really allowable. Again, most of their hours need to be indirect. That's the focus of this program, is really that capacity building effort and volunteer management. The position should be defined by AmeriCorps service expectations and not those established by another school or employment purpose. So kind of more layman's terms here is that we understand that some of these positions can overlap with internships or other experiential learning opportunities, but ensuring that as you're filling out this position description and for the sites that you're wanting the members to be at, that it's meeting the AmeriCorps service expectations first, and then any other obligations or expectations or requirements that may be kind of tacked on with that position that is there. So kind of keeping that in the back of your mind, that it needs to be an AmeriCorps service site first, more than those other experiential experiences. Part-time members can receive federal work study for their service. Full-time members can do this as well. The only stipulation there is that if a full-time member receives federal work study, their living allowance will be reduced the amount the work study of the work study award. So keep that in mind for any students that may fall into that category. And then on-site service sites may include campus departments, specific programs, and other student service clubs. So the next item of the actual program interventions, and this is kind of another section of the position description that has been kind of added in there. Much of what you're going to see as we go through all four of these should look familiar to anyone who has done the position descriptions before. The majority of that information was pulled directly from them, but this year we're just trying to have more of a focus and more of a direct, I guess, just focus on these interventions as you're actually describing them in the descriptions themselves. So the first intervention, the community engagement. So this includes asset mapping, use of community needs assessment, and leveraging resources and collaborative relationships. We have some examples of outcomes and activities. So an example, short-term outcome, increase activities to expand awareness of the organization or increasing the diversity of the partnership arrangements. So with this, some activities, example activities for these would be the creation of an external website for the organization, development of a social media policy, or regular staff and volunteer contributions to this website's blog or online newsletter. So that's for community engagement. The next one, organizational development. So this would include the existence or adoption of systems related to human resources, finances, existence or adoption of specific policies or procedures. So some example outcomes for this would be regular assessments of organizational strengths and needs, or the assessments of external opportunities and risks. So kind of a focus on kind of an ongoing SWOT analysis of the organization. Some example activities for this would be the development of an organization database. A lot of current ICAP members right now kind of do the third one here, so researching organizational management best practices for the organization. So these are just kind of some example outcomes and activities for organization development. Where a majority of current ICAP members are kind of addressing, or the intervention that they're primarily working towards kind of during this year, is the program development. And I kind of see that going forward. So this is the expansion and enhancement of the program or service delivery, program monitoring, and evaluating program outcomes. So some outcomes for this would be the increase of number of clients served at the organization, tracking the types of amounts of program services being provided, tracking client data, getting client feedback. Those are the type of outcomes associated with program development. Some example activities, organize staff or volunteer training workshops, the development of training modules. A lot of members do this third one here, development of curriculum for new or existing programs, or the creation of an operations manual altogether. So those are just some examples for program development. And then the last one, this is where another chunk of the majority of our ICAP members are kind of working towards volunteer management. So the expansion or enhancement of existing volunteer practices, volunteer recruitment, and coordinating of service opportunities. So the example outcomes here would be, of course, increased visibility in the community and on the campus, volunteer retention after the service project has ended, increase agency program capacity, and increase campus community relationships. And some example activities to go along with these goals would be to develop a new or update an existing written volunteer generation plan, doing the same thing for any type of volunteer manual or training that may already exist, establishing formal partnerships for volunteer recruitment, or just regular supervision of and communication with volunteers. So at this point, I was going to bring up the position description template itself along with the instructions. So if you can bear with me here. So this is the Weebly site, and this is where the position description file is located, and it's just under supervisors and then clicking on position descriptions. So as you can see here, the file is right here, and you go down, there's general requirements, guidelines, other guidance, a lot of what I've already kind of talked about so far. But I will show you at the very bottom of this page, Justin has made a very convenient checklist. So this is something after you kind of go through your very first draft of the actual description. This is a good way to make sure that all the points are being met that we're looking for. So just going through all of these service sites, so making sure the service site is an eligible public organization. We talked about that earlier on in the training, including supervisor name, contact information, and then also making sure that whatever the position title is, that includes AmeriCorps in it. Second one here for purpose, so target that a target beneficiary population is listed. It includes information of how the position will help the organization by either leveraging more or better volunteers or better serve local beneficiaries. The third section here, that's really talks about the interventions that I mentioned earlier. So the intervention aligns with the selected outputs and outcomes. Those same outputs and outcomes, outcome goals are reasonable for the member to reach, and it's clearly described the way that progress and the goals are being met. The fourth item here is for the typical service conditions. So this is typically what where the service is going to be taking place. So it can be primarily on campus. Will the member be at a nonprofit organization the majority of the time? Would it be in any other type of setting the majority of times? So this is where you would just kind of list out where the service will be taking place throughout the member's term. The next section here, this is where really the nuts and bolts of the description, and that's really describing the AmeriCorps members' tasks and their activities. Just kind of reading through here, the biggest thing to take away from this section is just to make sure that the tasks and activities are clearly described and they're specific to the member's position. So that's number 2 and 3 for the points here. And that's really the biggest things that are being kind of asked of us, that more of these positions are being clearly defined and the tasks are as specific as possible. Some other things to keep in mind, this very first point here, the tasks and activities are not duplicative or displace existing employees or volunteer efforts. They're not prohibited activities. They are not administrative, as we talked about a little bit earlier. making sure that they're not disconnected from program outcomes or just disjointed from the entire position description. So an example of that would be if you put in the purpose that they're primarily going to be doing or working with a mentoring program, making sure that the activities reflect that. So making sure that they're not heavily being tasked with doing a lot of day of service events if their purpose is for this mentoring program. So again, just to further kind of clarify to make sure that everything is very clear, please don't use any acronyms or abbreviations, and make sure that everything that is listed are generally indirect services. Because again, direct services aren't necessarily allowed except for those three situations. And the very last section is for the schedule. So of course, put the day of the weeks and the hours that they'll be working, but also include any special events. This includes if they're going to be participating in days of service, if you know of, any events that will result in the member in serving more than 6 or 7 hours per day. If you can already kind of see those events kind of ahead of time, make sure you include that into the schedule section here. If they're going to be working on any federal holidays, please let us know here as well, especially any that you may see kind of going forward. And then even more detailed, include any kind of meal breaks. So if you have members that are working 7, 8, 9 hours per day, please include or have them include the meal breaks on this schedule here as well, because those are not allowable. So just kind of again, getting a clearer picture of exactly what the member is doing day in and day out at their position. So I will show you the actual template itself here. So as you can see at the very top, this really captures all of the service site information. As you go down, the actual position purpose, or kind of the summary of what the member is going to be doing. It then goes into the interventions and the outcomes and the outputs of those. Then tracking, progress of goals. How would that be measured? Is it going to be through a survey? Any kind of reports created? Handbooks developed? Typical service conditions. So again, where the member is going to be working primarily at. And then this is the section where you actually include the AmeriCorps tasks and the activities. And on here, as you can see, it says be as specific and describe the task as clearly as possible. And we even have some verbiage on here of what not to use. So try not to use words such as support, manage, supervise, or assist. And then it has the actual site where the position description instructions are at. And then also the service schedule, this is where you input it here as well. So the last 2 pages, this is the cheat sheet that I was mentioning at the very beginning of the training that Justin put together. And this walks you through the entire position description template itself. So just by walking through all of these and then also looking at that checklist that was developed, you'll be able to, I think, fill this out relatively easily. With that being said, again, a lot of the information that we're trying to capture here, it's a lot of what we've already kind of communicated if you've done a position description before. But again, it's really just to help us to document specifically and more clearly what the AmeriCorps members are doing at their sites. Kind of another thing to keep in mind as well is that we very much encourage you to work in tandem with your community partner as well as with the student, probably even more so with the community partner on developing these position descriptions. We see these ideally as being created one time initially, and then you're just going to be adding students to the position at this organization. So kind of a one-time startup kind of position description created that different students can then be plugged into for the following semester or for the following year. So again, very detailed, but with this initial setup for this, you'll be able to have a kind of a template for you for your specific organization that they're going to be working at, that you can simply just input students into and maybe tweak a little bit based on student interest or different opportunities that may be available during that time period as well. So with that, I will close this out and go back to the main presentation here. If there's any questions, you can definitely direct those to myself or Justin. We're here to help you and assist you as much as possible with these position descriptions. We know it's a big shift for those of you who have done these before, but we feel like these were able to help you to more and better clearly define what exactly your members are doing, to kind of get away from those follow-up calls in the midterm of a AmeriCorps member's term, to kind of clarify what exactly their service is, and just making sure that everything is to the expectations of AmeriCorps. But if you have any other questions, definitely reach out to either Justin or I. We'll be more than happy to help you out. So thank you so much, and this will be available on our Weebly page, as well as the slides for this presentation.